Love that sound. That is one of my very favorites. That, of course, is the shofar. It is to be blown during two of the Mow'ed Miqra'ey. Mow'ed means the restoring witnesses to the eternal meetings, and Miqra'ey is the plural of Miqra, and it speaks of being invited to be called out and to meet with God. The two Mow'ed Miqra'ey that are designated by the blast of that shofar, which is a ram's horn, are Shabuwah and Teruah. The next harvest on God's calendar will be Shabuwah. It will be celebrated actually twice with two fulfillments. The first will be the beginning of the time of Israel's troubles, which will commence with the forfeiture of the heart of Israel as part of the two-state dissolution, and that will occur on or before the 22nd of May, 2026. And the great betrayer of Israel, the next Neville Chamberlain, will be none other than Donald Trump. Then on the 11th of June in 2027, we will celebrate the harvest of Teruah. It is a harvest of standing grain, of mature grain. There are two different types of grain that are designated, and it and the two loaves reveal that this is a time of the harvest of both Yisrael and also of Goyim. The next harvest after that is 7 years later. It will commence at the end of the time of Jacob's troubles. And on the Friday evening, the 23rd of September, 2033, which is year 6000, we will experience the first of the two phases of Teruah with a gleaning of Israelites. And it is on these two occasions that shofar is blown. Now, in our last program, we talked about the events of Teruah, such that you have a better understanding of the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, which is a huge part of that day. But there is another place where Shabuwah and Teruah are discussed. Now, my favorite happens to be in Yeshaya 17. But the great prophet had even more to say about these two marvelous harvests of Shabuwah and Teruah, and that is in the 55th and 66th chapters, running through the 57th chapter of Yeshaya. I think you can probably see in our shot, this is the Wookiee, who is contributing mightily to this program, doing the back flop, which means please rub my tummy. So we'll try to keep the Wookiee content. He is a big part of the Yahowah blog. Now, the prophet does, as usual, set the stage, placing these harvests of souls into the context of their time. And that is essential because there are no more chances after they pass. Heaven won't wait. Within this prophecy, Yeshaya, which means Yahweh delivers and Yahweh saves, reveals the societal conditions which will persist immediately before, during, and after Shabuwah and Teruah as they are fulfilled. Then he explains why rabbis will be unfazed by the sudden disappearance of thousands of covenant members. Of particular interest, Yeshaya confirms that the initial harvest of souls precedes the time of Jacob's troubles, making it a preemptive rescue mission, if you will. And while the other Teruah follows it, we also find that it is interesting that at the conclusion of Yeshaya 57, there is a compelling presentation of how we should be observing the Shabbaton. Now, it is a curious thing in terms of the time of trouble. I think officially kicks off at on Teruah just now, 8 months from now, which will be the 22nd of May, 2026. The vicious part of the time of troubles actually commences the following year. That is when al-aqsa flood 2.0 will ensue. And so it is I believe it's the timing of this particular harvest commensurate with the hideous invasion of Israel, 1,000 times worse version of al-aqsa flood, the all-Islamic attack that was initially perpetrated on the 7th of October in 23. So by taking the time to study this prophetic portrayal within the context in which it is presented, we come to appreciate why God is opposed to religion, and we better appreciate the consequence of these doctrines and their influence that they have on, particularly on young people, on children. The prophets inspired commentary in Yahowah 55, 56, and 57 provides a scathing rebuke of Judaism, and all during the time of the Miqra'ey of Shabuw'ah leading to taruw'ah, thereby revealing Yahweh's assessment of the heresy, which is all negative. Turns out his every word is germane to the purpose of the Shabbat, of the promises of sevens, of trumpets, and of shofars. They all convey an aspect of Yahweh's reconciling message with his people at this time to counteract the hideous and pervasive influence of religion. So by way of introduction, in Yahowah, Isaiah 55, Yahweh declares that unlike the costs associated with Judaism, his redemption is free. This is an announcement, he says, and a warning to everyone who thirsts. Choose to walk towards the water. Then let the one who wants to enjoy the benefits of the relationship do so without cost. You have been given the opportunity to go about acquiring food which is nourishing. So come hither to obtain wine without any money, and milk without remuneration or compensation. Yahowah, Yahweh frees, Isaiah 55:1. I like a number of the elements that are woven into this statement. First of all, it begins with an oi. And an oi is usually something that, well, you better pay attention to, because what follows is a warning to you. And in this particular case, Yahweh is contrasting what he is offering, which is freely given, both in the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, as well as Shabuwah and Teruah, to rabbis being the most money-grubbing of all religious clerics. And so he says to those who thirst, choose to walk towards the water, the mayim, of your own volition, approach the source of cleansing and life. That is the beauty of mayim's waters. It is the source of life, and it is the ultimate solvent to cleanse. Then let the one who wants to enjoy the benefits of the relationship from Asher do so freely. You have been given this opportunity to go about. It is to walk, acquiring food which is nourishing. You know, this whole kosher thing that the rabbis have set up with 1,001 rules to eat kosher, have a kosher kitchen, and to have kosher supervision of everything is just nothing but a money-grubbing scheme. God does not have a kosher meal plan. God mentioned the things that he said were healthy for you to eat and the things that were not healthy for you to eat, and he left it at that. Until in Devarim, he inspired Moshe to say that you can eat whatever you want, so long as you do so thoughtfully. And the message here is that for most of human history, the things that were on God's, you shouldn't be eating that list, were toxic. They carried all manner of disease. You know, everybody is familiar with the fact that swine have salmonella and other kinds of diseases, and prior to modern forms of raising pigs, as well as refrigeration and butchering, preparation, and that sort of thing, distribution. That was deadly. Same thing was true with shellfish. They were not safe to eat. Well, that has changed to a large degree. And now God just says, eat whatever you want, just do so thoughtfully. The last thing he wants is for his people or anyone to make a religion out of food. So you've been given the opportunity to acquire food, which is nourishing. So come hither, come, obtain wine without money. This wine is, God is saying, you don't need to enter into a financial transaction with me. Wine is symbolic of the two individuals who shed their corporeal bodies, who are bludgeoned to death to fulfill Pesach and then later taruw'ah. And they're being offered freely. And then milk is the beverage of choice for those who are still infants and growing, and particularly on taruw'ah, those who are the beneficiaries of the sacrifice of the Adam Perah are going to need some milk because they'll be spiritual babies. But again, God's not interested in your money. He's not asking you to make a donation. So following taruw'ah, the waters will be running off the Temple Mount, as I have shared, cleansing everyone they touch. The seeds of the feast have taken root and grown, providing a nourishing meal. And the wine is symbolic of the Adamah, the bloody red man who is on the ground. The milk comes from the pregnant heifers after they have given birth to their first calf. Now, this is God's plea to his people. He wants them to stop enriching rabbis. They have been paying them to rob their souls for a very long time. And while Yahowah continues to offer all of the benefits of the Miqra'ey, these invitations to be called out and meet, and the Bereth, the covenant, without monetary compensation, Yahowah's words are only nourishing, satisfying, and pay dividends when they're freely accepted. Now, water, as I've shared, is the symbol of the Spirit who makes all of this possible, and of life and of cleansing. Wine and bread, milk represent Pesach, matzah, and the Bakorim, providing the means to prolong life, being perfected, and our adoption as God's children. They all provide us with this benefit, particularly the benefits of the covenant, without remuneration. So nothing costs less, nothing is more valuable. So why do you spend, God asks, continually paying out money for that which is not actually bread, such that your labor is not satisfying and produces nothing of lasting value? Listen diligently and be nourished by that which is good, useful, and beneficial, even exquisitely pleasurable and extravagantly superb, with these being the most desirable and beneficial of all options for your soul. God's being really direct, but using very vivid imagery that anyone over the last 3,400 years should be able to understand. The religious have made money hoodwinking, fooling, controlling people. That is what they do. And so God is saying, just stop it. Stop spending. Stop paying out your money. God's not looking for money. He wants your company. He wants your companionship. He wants to earn your trust. He wants your ear. He wants your eyes. He does not want your wallet. So stop spending. Stop paying out for that which really isn't bread. He's saying that, what the rabbis are producing for matzah has no value whatsoever. Why does it have no value as bread? Well, it's because the rabbis have turned Passover into the 7-day holiday and have completely ignored the purpose of matzah. It's actually the opposite of what they prescribe. Matzah, the unyeasted bread of matzah, is the most important day. In fact, it's chag matzah, which Pesach is just part of. And to celebrate Passover without matzah is counterproductive. It means that you'd become immortal, but eternally separated from God. So you don't want the rabbinic bread. You don't want your labor to be unsatisfying. The rabbis have found 10,000 ways to do nothing on the Shabbat, such that it's the most laborious and difficult day of the week. They've got a rule for everything. God just said, don't go there. Don't do that. There is nothing in Judaism that produces anything of value. I've made a habit of finding anywhere from 5 to 10 rabbinic pontifications that I post on Facebook just to show how utterly ridiculous rabbinic Judaism is. It has no value whatsoever. It is exceedingly lame. So God's saying, listen diligently. In rabbinic Judaism, they take the Shema, the statement that Yahowah provided in Devarim, Deuteronomy, which says, listen, Yisrael, Yahowah, your God, is one. And rather than listen, Yisrael, Yahowah, your God, is one, in Judaism, they've turned that into shouting the Shema and making it a prayer. So rather than listening, they're yabbering. It's the exact opposite. And rather than recognizing that Yahowah is the God of Yisrael and that he is one, they change Yahowah, erasing his name and replacing it with Satan's title, the Lord. As I say, Israel is toxic Judaism is toxic to Israel. So listen diligently to me. In other words, not to those rabbis that are robbing you, and be nourished by that which is actually good, useful, and beneficial. This is what God wants you to do. He even says it's exquisitely pleasurable and extravagantly superb. I've had a number of conversations with Rich and with Leah over the last few months where it became obvious to us early on that the Shabbat is a verb and it's actionable, and that Yahowah does his best work on the Shabbat. For example, the most important day in our past is Dowd's fulfillment of Chag Matzah, and he fulfilled Matzah where our guilt is laden on Dowd's soul, and then Dowd is taken into Sheol where he deposited it, never to be seen again. That occurred on a Shabbat in the 15th day of Abib in 33 CE. The upcoming harvest of Shabuw'ah, first the Shabuw'ah that begins the time of Jacob's troubles, it commences on a Shabbat. The harvest of Shabuw'ah the following year on June 11th is also a Shabbat. Both the taruw'ah gleaning and the sacrifice of the red heifer, where Yahowah ignites the fire, releases the waters, and Eliah serves as the master of ceremonies, well, it's on a Shabbat. We return to the garden and celebrate the 1,000 years of Sukkah, beginning on a, you got it, Shabbat. So clearly, if God is doing his best work on behalf of the relationship on the Shabbat, and we follow his example and we work to maximize the benefits of the relationship on a Shabbat, what we're doing is consistent with God's intent. So we talk about this a lot because God's cadence of taking a day off each week is really necessary. And I haven't done it now in probably the past 6 or 7 years. Once it became obvious as to how many times Yahowah had designated the mission that we were collaborating on, giving it one of maybe as upwards of 50 different titles. The responsibility became so significant, almost overwhelming, that I didn't want to disappoint God. And I just started doing this 7 days a week. And I've kept that pace, 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, now for many years. And well, I'm very comfortable delivering this message and doing the study in Yahowah's Torah and Prophets to provide it on the Shabbat. You need to take a day off. Our systems just don't work very well if you're putting in 12 to 14 hour days, 7 days a week. So, we've talked about this, and I'm not positive I have the best answer, because I do know that since Yahowah does his best work on the Shabbat, and that Shabbat is actionable, and it's a time to celebrate the relationship, I don't want to shortchange this experience with anyone who is part of the covenant family or interested in becoming part of the covenant family. And yet I also want to set a good example. But, I don't have any ordinary work anymore. All I have is the work of Yahowah. And so it doesn't fall under the designation. Anyway, God is saying that what he is offering is exquisitely pleasurable and extravagantly superb. It is anag, divinely delightful and abundantly enjoyable, privileged, and even tender. And then he says, with these being the most desirable and beneficial options for your soul. So many people are fixated on our bodies and on the here and now, but the only thing that matters is our soul. It's one of the reasons why the Dionysian nature of Christianity, where there is a dying and resurrecting God, is just so utterly absurd. To go from death to a physical body is counterproductive. Our bodies are meaningless. You don't defeat death by going back into a physical body. We are only liberated and able to go into the seventh dimension of Shamayim, to travel through the universe, to be perfected, to be immortal, if we shed these bodies, and our souls, our nefesh souls, our consciousness, the reservoir of our personalities and our attributes and our attitudes and our experiences, are melded into Yahowah's spiritual energy. And so these things that God is offering are good for the soul. And that's one of the reasons he said, eat whatever you want. I mean, it's just do so thoughtfully. So on the surface, Yahowah is revealing that there is nothing nourishing about Judaism. It is a fraudulent transaction. And beyond this, God is particularly annoyed that his people have eliminated chag matzah from among his Miqra'ey, thereby ensuring that there is no cure for the religion that is killing them. In addition, the rabbis who commandeered Yahowah's redemptive calendar and replace taruw'ah, that is this evening. In fact, the sun is about ready to set here. In a matter of minutes, I think we'll have our sunset. It will be taruw'ah, and yet the rabbis have replaced it with the Babylonian Rosh Hashanah, head of the year. What a tragic mistake. I mean, that's worse than Christians replacing Passover with Easter. And really, it's that obnoxious from God's point of view. So it exposes the Babylonian roots of rabbinic Judaism. It shows that the rabbis are leeches and parasites on God's people. And I don't think there's ever been a more obvious time that it becomes just clear that the Haredim and ultra-Orthodox Jews are a parasite. They contribute nothing of value, and yet they devour resources. So while the rabbinic way has been unfulfilling, indeed miserable and costly beyond measure, Yahowah is offering something exquisitely pleasurable and extravagantly superb. God is not a cosmic killjoy. He is not trying to lord over us. He's not trying to deprive us of anything. He wants to give us everything we could possibly imagine that is worthwhile and enjoyable. He wants to share the universe with us. He wants to share life with us. So what do Jews have to lose apart from the yoke of an impoverishing, archaic religion? Why not give Yahowah's approach a try? I mean, the rabbinic approach certainly has not been of benefit to anyone. After 3,400 years of mucking up the relationship with religion, why not just get rid of it and engage in a personal relationship, father and child, with God? After all, isn't it insane, or should we say just inadvisable, continue on the same path that has brought such misery to God's people? Well, anyway, this is, I think, very good news coming from Yahowah, especially recognizing that the path to Yahowah and to eternal life is through the Mow'ed Miqra'ey, these restoring witnesses to the eternal meetings, to be invited to be called out and meet with God, making this known so that it is heard around the world is the stated purpose of these books we're sharing now with you from this series. It's called the Yahowah series. There are 9 books in this series, 9 volumes in this series, and this happens to be Qatsyr Harvest. I don't want to keep you up or anything there, Wookiee, but you do your best just to hang in there with me, will you please? Okay. Wookiee is gaming for the big celebration of taruw'ah tonight. He heard that we're going to make it a 2-day celebration, and he wants to make certain that he is ready for all of it. Even Asher, if this microphone was less directional, you would hear that Asher has a problem common to many men, but she's a girl, but nonetheless, she snores, and that is what she's doing now. So God says, incline your ear to me. Listen. Stop praying. Stop yabbering. Stop talking, rabbis. God never once asked anyone to pray to him, but he often asks us to listen to him, and that's what he's saying here. Incline your ear so that you can walk to me. Choose to actually listen. Shama. This is from 1Qatsyr. So that your soul may continue to exist. If you listen to God, your soul can be eternal. If you listen to the rabbis, the only chance for your soul being eternal is if it's incarcerated in Sheol. And that does not sound advisable. God says, then I will cut you into Karat. I will establish for you the everlasting Olam, the eternal, never-ending, always existing, one and only covenant, a family relationship, which was affirmed and verified with unrelenting love and unfailing devotion. By Dowd. By Dowd. Do you process that? By Dowd. Isaiah 55:3. Not by Jesus, not by Hashem, not by Adonai, not by a rabbi, not by an unknown Messiah, not by Allah, not by G-D even. By Dowd. Yahowah means beloved. I can assure you that Isaiah knew how to spell and pronounce his name, Dowd. The Wah in Dowd's name is pronounced just as it is in Yahowah's name, just as it is in the word Torah, just as it is in the word Shalom. Dowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I would tell you that what I've just shared with you is as important as any words you'll ever hear. If all you learn this taruw'ah is to distrust the rabbis, to recognize that this is not the first month of the year, as the Babylonians would live it, but the seventh month of the year as prescribed by Yahowah, and that this is not Rosh Hashanah, it is Yom Teruah, and that God does not want you to pray to him. He does not want rabbis speaking to you. He wants you to incline your ear and listen to him, to choose to actually walk to him and genuinely listen so that you hear what he has to say, because that is the only way your soul will continue to live, particularly in his presence. If you want to live, listen to God and walk to him along the path that he has provided. Pesach, Matzah, Bikurim, Shabuwah, Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah. Pesach is the doorway to life. Matzah is that threshold. When you cross it, your guilt is removed so that you can be Bikurim, the firstborn children of the covenant. Walk to me, God says. Choose to listen to me so that your soul may continue to exist. Because if you continue to listen to the rabbis, at the very best, your soul will be exterminated upon the end of your mortal life. And worse, if you promote Judaism, your soul will be incarcerated in Sheol as a consequence of misleading others. One of the most important verbs in all of Hebrew to understand is the verb that Yahowah consistently uses to describe the covenant. It was cut, Karat. It is established through separation. The covenant, by being Karat, means that it is a dividing line, that you are either cut into it or cut out of it. And as a verb, it is actionable. So your choices in terms of listening to Yahowah as opposed to a societal influencer, like the late but not great Charlie Kirk, or the not late and less great Carlson Tucker, or any of those political and religious pontificators that are influencers, or any rabbi, or any pastor, priest, pope, or imam. If you listen to them, your soul will die. If you respond to them, your soul will die. 100 million people listened to the funeral of that lost man promoting a pedophile and a rapist under the guise of his faux Jesus. Everyone who believes Carlson, who spoke during it, Rubio, who spoke during it, J.D. Vance, who spoke during it, or Donald Trump, or Mrs. Kirk, Erica, anyone who believes any of them, you're going to lose your soul. 100% guaranteed. Charlie Kirk is not in heaven. He will never see heaven. And his soul is actually destined to Sheol because he misled so many. So God's very clear. Listen to him, walk to him. If you listen to him, your soul will continue to exist. But you can't listen to God by reading the Christian New Testament. God's diametrically opposed to it. Same thing is true of the Talmud and the Quran. Same thing is true with the Zohar. You can listen to Yahowah by reading the Torah, and the prophets and these Mizmor Psalms. We listen to Yahowah when we open the book of Yeshayah, Isaiah. And as for the covenant, you are cut in or cut out. 999,999 out of every 1 million souls is cut out of the covenant. Now, my job is to be belligerent against the religious and the political, not to awaken them, not to get them to cease being religious and political, but so that those who are willing to walk away from and distrust religion and politics know for a fact that those things are false, misleading, and deadly, that they are destructive, that they are a plague, that God despises them. So I do it not for the religious, but for those who are not religious, so that they know that all that gunk is untrue, and then once it's all cleared away, they're receptive to the truth, which in this case is that there was no Jesus and there was no divine inspiration of a false Messiah or Rabbi Akiba, relative to Bar Kokhba, that they were both false messiahs, and that the true Messiah and Son of God, who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Makodim, is David. So you want to be cut into the covenant? You have to listen to God. And this covenant, the one and only covenant, God's family, and the covenant is the only way into heaven. That's it. There's no other way to leave this mortal existence such that you become part of God's family, covenant, other than by the terms and conditions that God has affirmed and verified with unremitting love and unfailing devotion through Dowd. Dowd is our Savior. Dowd is our Messiah. He is the Son of God. He is our King. He is the chosen one. He is the exemplar of the covenant. He is the one who enabled the covenant's promises. The single most important person who ever lived, a person who absolutely represents the things that were robbed from him to create the false impression of Jesus, all belong to Dowd. I would tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that's the single greatest discovery in human history. If you've listened to these programs, you know that I have been pontificating this for a number of years. If you're new to it, then I've just given you the greatest treasure in the universe. Rabbinic Judaism was founded on the lie of a false Messiah. Christianity was founded on the lie of a false Messiah. The true Messiah, the true Son of God, the true former and returning King, our Savior, the one who enabled the benefits of the covenant according to God, who ought to know, is Dowd. You want to be part of the one and only covenant? You do so by way of the things God accomplished through his beloved son, Dowd. And it was Dowd who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Makodim in year 4000 Yan 33 CE, exactly as he foretold. So few people have an appreciation for why the Christian New Testament doesn't quote what would have been the single most legitimizing passage to its very existence. Daniel 9. There is no mention of the Messiah who will be cut off, but not for himself. So why did Christianity miss the opportunity to pilfer the single most important prophecy for its legitimization? Because they knew it didn't apply to mythical Jesus, that it applied to Dowd because the person who gave the prophecy was Gabry'el, God's most capable and courageous man, Dowd to David. And they would know that being cut off, Karat, but not for himself, was the fulfillment of matzah, which Christianity disowns, as does Judaism. You're cut off from the land of the living and enter Sheol with our guilt on matzah. There is no karat on Passover. It occurs on matzah. And so they knew it didn't fit their guy. And it was delivered by the actual Messiah, Dowd himself. That's why. Do you know the other verse that's never quoted in the Christian New Testament is Isaiah 9, which would be the second most important to legitimize the religion if it pertained to Jesus. But you know, just like this one, there's only one name that is presented in the prophecy about the child who is born and the son who is given. And that name is the same as this one, Dowd, where it's also presented that he is the Gabor, the strong and capable man of God. Thought you should know. Isaiah 55:3 validates the essence of my mission, which is to serve as the lesser luminary for the greater luminary. Dowd, who is as brilliant as the sun in God's presence, according to God. His brilliance is reflected by the lesser luminary, his herald, so that you become familiar with him. And it is by becoming familiar with what Dowd has promised that we live. Do you know in that same prophecy in Daniel 9 that Dowd, as Gabry'el, the most courageous and compassionate man of God, that he provides the exact date to the day. In 33 CE, I believe it's by memory, April 9th, that he would complete the promise of Chag Matzah. The promise to be cut off, but not for himself, with the fulfillment of Chag Matzah, the date that he provided. In 555 BCE, almost 600 years in advance, was the completion of Chag Matzah. Do you know that there's only one eyewitness account of what occurred on Passover with the crucifixion of the Passover lamb, and that it was written in first person by the Passover lamb who was crucified in 33 CE, and that was written 1,000 years before he was crucified, and it was written in first person by Dowd? It is so obvious that Dowd is the son who was given, that he is the Passover lamb, that in his second of 3 lives he fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, and that he, in that second of 3 lives, completed fulfilling Chag Matzah in 33 CE, which became year 4,000 Yah, which means that year 6,000 Yah is 2033, and that taruw'ah, the final taruw'ah, will be fulfilled in 2033, and that Dowd will return with Yahowah as brilliant as the sun on Yom Kippurim 2033, which means sundown, 6:22 p.m., the 2nd of October of that year. This is profoundly important. No one has ever not only deduced this before, but shared it with you. The entire picture from beginning to end, everything that is important to know about God. Correcting the mistakes, I can't even say mistakes, correcting the fraud of Judaism, the fraud of Christianity, the fraud of Islam, having written 13 books that negate all of the false claims of the Talmud, the New Testament, and the Quran. Also that you would read the other 30 books, or 25 books, I should say, and come to know the truth about Yahowah and his beloved son Dowd and what they have achieved on your behalf. I want to read that line again because I just think it's one of the greatest ever written. Incline your ear and walk to me. Choose to actually listen so that your soul may continue to exist. There's only one way to walk to God. Pesach, Matzah, Bikurim. Shabuwah, Teruah, Kippurim, Sukkah. 7 steps along that way. That's why there are 7 candles in that menorah that is spinning over my shoulder. Even this one that is on the shelf behind me, right here, there. It's so funny when you're working on a camera and you're seeing yourself in a monitor. Everything is reversed, kind of like looking into a mirror. But that menorah that is over my shoulder here, and the one that is spinning over this shoulder, and in both cases, they have 7 candles. There are 7 steps to walk to God. The first provides life eternal. The second, perfection of our souls where our guilt is removed. And the third, our inclusion into the very family of God as his children, where we were enriched and empowered. Incline your ear and walk to Yahowah. Choose to actually listen so that your soul may continue to exist. Then God says, I will cut you into the everlasting covenant, this family relationship, which was affirmed and verified with unremitting love and unfailing devotion by Dowd. Can you imagine the love and the devotion required? To volunteer, to allow the Romans to rip the flesh off your body, and then to nail you to an upright pillar in the most excruciating death that has ever been devised. And that you allowed that beast to torment you on that way, in that way, on that day, to open the doorway to life, and then did something even greater, more courageous, more heroic, more loving. You allowed your soul to be slathered with the guilt of us all and carried into Sheol, to deposit it there in what is equivalent to a black hole, never to be seen again, making us not guilty in God's presence. Dowd volunteered to do these things. Unfortunately, his people spit in his face, and they denied all of it, precluding salvation for themselves. Tragic, sad, disappointing, inexcusable. And then the most popular religion in the world robbed Dowd of all of it. His titles, his achievements, and thereby robbed themselves of their souls. The greatest criminal act ever committed. Your decision regarding the words that you have just heard will absolutely and unequivocally determine the fate of your soul. Whether it is extinguished as a flickering flame blown out by the religious, or whether it grows to become nearly as brilliant as Dowd itself. And Dowd is returning as brilliant as the sun. If we were to condense Yahweh's Torah and covenant into a summarizing statement, it would be that Dowd provided the benefits of the covenant by fulfilling the Mow'ed, and he serves as the ultimate example of what it represents. The Zeroah sacrificial lamb is the Son of God, his chosen one and firstborn. He is both shepherd and king. He's a prophet and a psalmist, the branch from which all things grow, literally the main branch off the tree of lives, the one anointed as Mashiach and immersed with the Spirit, all as an eternal witness, our Savior. Well, he served as the Passover lamb, and he carried our guilt into Sheol. He is the living embodiment of this covenant, what God wants most of all. And you know, if it were just God, Dowd would be enough for him. He loves his son. He could enjoy all eternity with just Dowd. But Yahowah is unique in the way that he interacts. He has chosen to communicate through people and to lead through people. And his favorite people happens to be Dowd. And he chose for Dowd to be our king, our counselor, our shepherd. And for a shepherd to be a shepherd, they must have sheep. For a king to be king, they must have subjects. And so it's not so much for Yahowah's sake that there will be more members to the covenant family. It's for Dowd's. He wants his son to have the kingdom he deserves, the family he deserves. And that is why we're here. So let it be known, Yahowah is offering to give us what he achieved through his son. All we have to do is listen, respond, and walk to him along the path he has provided. This is the message Yisrael and Yehudah most need to hear. And there are only 8 iterations of Shabuwah and Teruah remaining. So partake while the getting is good. This is the last taruw'ah before we enter the time of Yaakov's trouble. I thought you ought to know. Well, Dowd is an enduring and restoring witness. He spoke and wrote on behalf of Yisrael. Further, calling the King of the universe a neged, as we will read moving forward, an authorized leader would be a demotion. He's King of the universe. And while the Messiah was a great teacher, his message was not for an archaic and misled world. Therefore, these words speak of Dowd's Bashar as I share them with you at the conclusion of this program, now that we are enjoying the beginning now of Yom Teruah. I want you to know that Dowd's herald is the Nakar. He is the observant foreigner. And he has been the ultimate Torah teacher. In his presentation of the final Zeroah, or in his presentation of the great Zeroah as the final Zeroah, Yahowah has taught him through his prophets so that he could address both Goyim and Yehudim, harvesting both on Shabuwah and then focusing on the olives, Yehudim and Israelites on Teruah. I'll share this last passage with you, and then my family is going to be celebrating Teruah. We'll meet with you again tomorrow because Teruah is a very, very full day. Behold, I bestowed him as a gift. That son who was given, that's Dowd. I bestowed him as a gift. And Dowd's herald is a gift to Dowd. Why? Because while the herald is responsible for acknowledging Yahowah's name and for reacquainting the world with Dowd's contribution to our lives, he is doing all of this for Dowd. So behold, I bestowed him as a gift. I offered him as a present and enabled him to be an enduring witness to the restoring testimony. At this point, while Dowd is the ultimate gift, God has given this restoring witness to all that Dowd represents as a gift to you as well. To the people of every ethnicity and culture. Dowd was not a witness beyond the children of Israel. Yada is. He is called to speak to Goyim and Yehudim, to people of every ethnicity and culture. He is the Nagid. He is the authorized leader, publicly promoting the truth. He is a worthy guide to that which is valuable and true, legitimate and proper. He is the one pointing to the legitimate ruler, Dowd. And it is from the God, one who accurately reports the evidence, declaring it openly and conspicuously. It can't be more conspicuous than turn on these lights, turn on the camera, activate the mic, and let's live stream to the world. And to do hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours of these programs, or to have written these 35 books that surround me and offer them freely to you in their entirety. Publicly promoting the truth as an instructor, teaching the Torah of God, conveying the prophetic insights of God. Someone who has been appointed and assigned this responsibility at the command of God. All for an archaic and misled world. Isaiah 55:4. When I began on Teruw'ah in 2001, this is my 24th anniversary with Yahowah, the world that he called me to awaken was entirely Leom, archaic and misled. There wasn't a single person. 6 billion people at the time. There's now 8. There wasn't a single person who knew Yahweh's name. There wasn't a single person that knew that Dowd was the actual Messiah and Son of God who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. There wasn't a single person who knew any of the 5 conditions of the covenant, much less the 5 benefits. There wasn't a single person who knew the intent of any of the 7 invitations to meet with God. There was no one who knew his timeline, when he fulfilled these events and when he would return to honor the last of them. No one knew anything about any of these things. It was an archaic and misled world. But that has begun to change, one soul at a time, one book at a time, one vlog at a time. And so now it is time that I say, Happy Teruw'ah to one and all. Cue the Shofar. Love the sound. Good night.